What will animals of the future look like? A question that may seem unanswerable, as evolution's variety of forms often appears limitless. As proven by the existence of the platypus, a mammal with a beak, which is wavy and that lays eggs. In 1798, British Museum specialist George Bernard Shaw received sketches and fur of this animal from Australia. It seemed so absurd to him that he first thought it was a hoax made by a talented taxidermist who had attached a duck's beak to a beaver's fur. At that time, many taxidermists enjoyed creating eccentric chimeras by combining parts of different animals. Man has always had a passion for inventing creatures that do not exist. The problem is that almost all of these animals, whether they come from the imagination of prankster taxidermists or from our tales and mythologies, are completely absurd, morphologically or evolutionarily. All these odd forms sacrifice biological credibility just to astonish. One might wonder where a centaur's lungs are, here or there, and where are the muscles that could make angels fly. If you watch birds, you'll see they have two large chest muscles that enable them to fly. Angels would be more believable with chicken breasts on their belly, since nature isn't random. In the great bush of life's evolution, it always works from existing forms, and not all paths are possible. Over millions of years and through genetic drift, the lineage of a doyus, a small terrestrial ungulate, can eventually evolve into cetaceans. No vertebrate has more than 4 limbs, and no insect grows as large as an elephant. What will the animals of the future look like? Who could have guessed dinosaur descendants would evolve so much they became unrecognizable, and we would one day call them chickens? Maybe a paleontologist talking with a xenopaleo artist or digital sculptor. Because Sebastian Steyer and Marc Boulet, frustrated by the poor quality of all these imaginary animals, came up with the idea to write Tomorrow, the Animals of the Future. A speculative biology work where authors unleash their imagination while respecting nature's constraints on life. To imagine what the future kings of the jungle might look like in 10 million years. A playground set in the near future, surprising yet close enough to explain its evolutionary history. And it's a temporary journey between art and science. A walk along paths future descendants of newts, pigeons, squids and bats may one day take, which we invite you to experience today. To build their speculative playground, the authors imagine that life continues its adventure on a planet without humans. A major mass extinction enabled an entire plausible imaginary fauna to fill the ecological niches left empty by the disaster. In this scenario, gradual ocean warming has eliminated cetaceans, sharks, and most fish. Survivors have moved toward the poles or deeper areas. And in the abysses of the future, new creatures appear, such as Stegoactis, Limnosus one,
of the last fish species on Earth.
The plates of this distant descendant of the 2-centimeter catfish have expanded and fused, forming a diving suit that lets it withstand extreme pressure. The 2 whiskers of the siluriform have fused to become a bioluminescent lure. Like its freshwater ancestors, this filter feeder eats phytoplankton. Abundant prey attracts voracious predators. Here's Bantogyrinus, a future giant tadpole filling the ecological niche of baleen whales. The authors imagined that such a species was made possible by a hormonal mutation, blocking the transformation into adulthood, like today with axolotls. The gradual development of a salt-storing gland, like those in some sea turtles, helps them survive in the ocean. These giant tadpoles, resembling hammerhead sharks, are future sea mastodons and may become the largest marine animals ever, with adult females reaching almost 40 meters. On these sea monsters, parasitic species abound, like Neoctopus fucus, a cleaning octopus that mimics the appearance of seaweed. Or even Siamus ornatus, large 30-centimeter crustaceans that are direct descendants of whale lice. Despite their size, Bantogyrinus remain predators. Rhombochides, a large and diverse family, descend from modern cuttlefish. The authors believe that this species, already present in all the world's seas, could have a bright future ahead of it, due to its intelligence and advanced camouflage. Among the rhombocetids, Imperator is the largest of the family. It can reach up to 20 meters long, including its tentacles, which are equipped with toothed projectiles and paralyzing ink. Fins begin to appear on their bodies, allowing them to move by propelling themselves like fish. In this fictional world, nearing the surface, we encounter Neopygoscelis, a distant penguin descendant. These animals completed their return to the sea by becoming ovoviviparous. They no longer need to climb onto the ice floe to lay eggs. These hatch inside their mother's belly, similar to Jurassic marine reptiles. 5 meters long with sharp-toothed beaks and 4 limbs as paddles, just like ichthyosaurs. These are fearsome predators. In these possible futures, bats, not birds, rule the skies. The authors see these little mammals with big fingers as champions of evolution. Extreme adaptation to the aerial environment made Gigapterus tropospherius the largest flying animal ever and the only known vertebrate to touch the ground only after death. Gigapterus lived their whole lives in flight, with their young developing in a marsupial-like pouch, before being thrown into the high-altitude void. Welcome! You have 5 minutes to learn to fly before hitting the ground. From mutation to mutation, their echolocation system has evolved into a system for detecting updrafts, which they rely on with their wings. With a wingspan up to 15 meters, they survive at 7,000 meters thanks to lungs filling 70% of their bodies. But not all future bats live in flight. Here is Nosfera podakinski, a 1-meter-tall bipedal bat that preys on burrowing birds called Talpis dornis. These creatures, as ugly as naked mole rats, live in complex underground networks, much like social insects. On the dry land of these possible futures, the disappearance of large mammals has made way for birds, most of which have grown larger and lost their wings. Like the extinct giant moas from New Zealand. The most impressive among them are undoubtedly the Tyrannosaurus rex. These distant descendants of parrots, with their advanced intelligence and toothed beaks, stand 3 meters tall and are at the top of the food chain. Neoviraptor, a clever bird descended from crows, controls Tyrannosaurus numbers by eating their eggs. From the author's imaginative minds comes Neosidari, Schwarzeneggeri. Odd but plausible, this 1-meter-long carnivorous sea urchin, the second creature, moves on spines that genetic drift has turned into a paste. You could spend hours exploring this rich bestiary, rivaling the wildest fantasy tales. The author's imagination, fueled by biology, is truly mind-blowing. Anatomical limits, evolutionary logic, and environmental features all support creativity here. And even if it's very unlikely that this future will happen, at least it has the merit of being one of the possible paths among the vastness that chance could take. It's still strange that predicting mountains and stars is easier than guessing what will happen to faces. What will future ants living in our homes be like? Seeing all these forms of life, you can't help but wonder if unicorns are really less strange and fantastic than the narwhals that inspired them. Will you continue the adventure and dive into tomorrow's depths? The Animals of the Future, published by Belin, the authors explain in great detail the reasons behind their creation. This book is a journey that leaves you wanting to imagine and draw living things. And by the way, we wanted to make it clear that this isn't a product placement, we just fell in love with the author's scientific creativity. Marc Boulet and Sebastian Steyer graciously allowed us to share their imagination with you. Finally, if you're wondering how Marc creates his creatures, well, here's a little glimpse. After spending hundreds of hours observing existing creatures and dozens more discussing possible futures with Sebastian, he moves on to sketching and creating, using software that faithfully reproduces sculpting techniques. He shapes small digital clay balls, deforms them, and assembles them to gradually create the animal's three-dimensional image. Finally, to achieve realistic renderings, he adds textures, then places the object in a digital photo studio to play with lighting and viewing angles.